good afternoon, good evening. It is utterances from people like Mutsvangwa that makes one's blood boil. The real, true liberation heroes of Zimbabwe, the Biane hunters, Sekuru Kagovi, Herbert Chitepo, etc., who believed in the freedom and dignity of every Zimbabwean, are turning their grave to hear idiots like Mutsvangwa wittering nonsense about the causes of Zimbabwe, its political and economic failure, and the tragic human suffering it has brought. This is Chris Mutsvangwa, the spokesperson of Zanu PF, speaking a few days ago at the Zanu PF press conference.
I also have one particular issue which I want to address. Zimbabwe was founded by the support of Africa, the Africa OAU Liberation Committee. And one of the first beneficiaries of the OAU Liberation Committee is a young aspiring guerrilla, was the current president. Africa matters to us as a country. It made us become what we are. When Mozambique was supporting us, they were a neighbor, but they were also African. Saka, you don't go about saying good atidi foreigners munyika munom. Atidi zwana dudura munom. We are an African country. Africans are not foreigners in Zimbabwe. Africans are not foreigners in Zimbabwe. They belong to this country. If there are certain things which will be done by certain Africans, let them be handled by the legal process, Maprisa Nema courts. Not some kind of blanket condemnation by a green stick a political approach. No. We're a mature brown stick country which has got a lot of respect for our African brethren. And when they are here, we treat them exactly as Zimbabweans in this country. We are not xenophobic like South Africa. And I mentioned earlier on, when you live in glass house, don't throw stones. I said the third biggest foreign currency earner in this country is the diaspora. They are strangers in other lands, in other jurisdictions. So if you live in glass houses, don't throw stones. It's now one diaspora all over the world. If you set a precedent at home where you blacklist a nationality, Chinese, Indian, or whatever, simply because of their color, you are also making it possible for your people to be treated in equal manner in other jurisdictions. We are a humanitarian country. We belong to the world. If there are any infractions, the law will take its course, not having a blanket condemnation of other nations or fellow Africans. And certain things are only said by the president. They are not said by everybody. Otherwise, wega afungwa with the president. Anongobuda angopama policies akazishauta from his own platform. Arisidonga watonga Zimbabwe. Kunotongwa nemunhu one. You may be, what I say, you've been dealing with me now for a long time. I have never been made to retract a statement after I've spoken here. I speak the mind of the president, I speak the mind of the party. Because the new policies are not vakure, are not us. That's what we follow. So it may not be too late, particularly for these people that are president in Chitepo College. I've mentioned it before. Nothing wrong with that. This is very good. Because when we talk, I'm a product of the Chitepo College. Most of the Zanu people cadreship, they are product of the Chitepo College. Pane vamu vakandosina kuuya kuchitepo vangu vari kuTanzania. so havana kubikwa nepfungwa dzechikoro chepati. Kune vamwe vakujoina today vanoda kuenda pamberi vachizviti hatibviri nemusangano. Imboudzidza musangano so that kana wakutaura nezvavo unotaura in line in.
Let's stop it there. Let's make something very clear here. The problems of the xenophobia attacks in countries like South Africa are a product of Zimbabwe's failure to govern ourselves. Zimbabwe has had the misfortune of 45 years and counting of rigged elections and bad governance. And it is absolutely infuriating that somebody should try to pretend the problem is with South Africa because they lack the spirit of Pan-Africanism. That's nonsense. Let's address the problem and the root causes. If you are a parent and your children have got to go to the neighbor day in, day out, if they are going to have something to eat, as much as the neighbor would want to be generous, there is a limit. Vana kana vachikwata zuva rega roga chavamuka vachidya voenda kwaneighbor vondokwata, palunch vondokwata, vasati vaenda kundovata vombondokwata. There is something wrong with you, the parent. And in Zimbabwe, that is exactly the problem. We have got a regime that is renowned for being wasteful, for being corrupt, for being incompetent. We have seen the luxury in which the ruling elite are living. And yet, the country's basic needs of education, healthcare are being neglected. This is the reality that we've got to face. And when a parent like that turns around and tries to blame the neighbor because his children should be allowed to go there and be fed, it's an outrage. One of the most enduring pictures, as far as I am concerned, is this one. This is the reality of a failed state where Zimbabweans have had to go to South Africa, among other countries, for their basic needs. This picture was taken at a time when there'd been xenophobia attacks where South Africans were going to various health institutions and telling and asking those who were not South Africans to leave. The picture here is of a woman cuddling a newborn baby and sitting in a pool of her own blood. The hospital is just behind her. She couldn't go there because she was foreign. This is the tragic reality when a nation has failed its own people. We cannot pretend that the millions of Zimbabweans going to South Africa for basic needs like education, healthcare, is causing serious problem and tension in that country. As much as one is not trying to condone it, but nonetheless, as Zimbabweans, we cannot pretend that we are not responsible, particularly those in positions of power and authority, those who are responsible for why the country is a failed state, are the ones who want to pretend here that they're doing nothing wrong. That is totally unacceptable. Zimbabwe is a failed state. And our neighbors have been trying their best to help us sort that out. In the 2023 elections, both SADC and the AU election observers condemned those elections as flawed and illegal. The response from Zanu PF was typical. The arrogance to even dismiss that report cannot be accepted in any nation that really seriously wants to solve its own problems. Here is the neighbor telling you that you have got to do A, B, C, D right. And then you dismiss them with contempt.
Vana vakatuka Zanu PF kana ndonyanyisa kufara kuita zvakanaka. Ukavona vavengi vakwashi kurumbidzwa nekuchikanganisa. Ukavona vachiti Zanu PF yakaipa farai. You are doing correct things for your country. Homu takaita maelections edu kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelection arafamba zvakanaka ndezvavo.
No. The fact that elections were rigged, these are not our detractors. These are our own regional neighbors. AU election observers are our own continental neighbors. And then we dismiss them as detractors. That's an outrage. Particularly for somebody who claims that they are Pan-Africanists. Where is the Pan-Africanism there? Pan-Africanism does not say Zanu PF can rig elections and deny its own people their basic fundamental freedoms and rights, including the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. of fluctuant nincompoop there. Mutsvangwa is talking of going back to the Chitepo School of Ideology. What does that school say about rigged elections? That's what the nation would want to know. 45 years after independence, the party has been rigging elections. What does that school say about that? I do not believe that Herbert Chitepo, if he was alive today, would approve what is happening in Zanu PF. Because that is not what the liberation war was all about. Zanu PF has hijacked the liberation war for its own selfish ends. And for somebody to keep on telling us that is all to do with Pan-Africanism is the most outrageous and idiotic statement one can make. And I think the people of Zimbabwe have got a right to demand an end to this madness. Let me make this very clear. Zanu PF does not have the divine right to rule the country. If there is anything that Herbert Chitepo School of Ideology should be teaching, it is exactly that. No one has the divine right to rule the country. The mandate to rule the country must be derived from the people in a free, fair, and credible election. You cannot just rig the elections. And even when the neighbors tell you that those elections were not free, fair, and credible, you dismiss it with contempt and pretend you did not do anything wrong. That cannot be. This carry-on cannot go on. We have got to put an end to this. 45 years in this day and age of rigged elections is an outrage. This madness must come to an end. 2028 must be about putting an end to the curse of rigged elections and bad governance. And the people of Zimbabwe must focus on that. At the present moment, as we can see, Zanu PF has not implemented any reforms, nor is there any sign that they intend to implement any democratic reforms. Our response should be, do not participate in the flawed process. Because if you participate, it gives the process legitimacy. In 2023, the people of Zimbabwe were conned by Chamisa, lying that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Triple C was going to win big. He was lying because the opposition have always known that Zanu PF gives away a few gravity seats, and that they found irresistible. We, the people of Zimbabwe, have got to be smart enough to realize what is going on here. The opposition, the MDC, Triple C, have become Zanu PF, Team B in all but name, playing for Team A to win and for Team A to have legitimacy. I repeat, 2028 should be about ending the curse of rigged elections and bad governance. And the best option for that is for the people of Zimbabwe to make sure that Zanu PF does not get legitimacy. SADC and the AU have already put their marker. It is now up to us to take up the baton and run with it. SADC will not give Zanu PF political legitimacy for rigging another election, but only if we do not participate in our millions in a flawed process. Think about it. Thank you very much for listening, and if you're available, join us again at 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time tonight. Have a good day.